Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to Talking Trees, your daily journey into the world of arboriculture and tree climbing. In today's episode, we dive into the fascinating realm of friction knots. We'll explore what friction knots are and how they work, based on the principle of slippage and grip, and learn why they're not meant to be used as the sole safety device. Join us as we unravel the details of these essential tools and uncover the secrets behind their effective use in tree climbing.
All right, so today we're going deep on something that's pretty vital for any arborist out there. Friction hitches.
Absolutely. It's a topic with a lot of depth, and honestly, one that I think deserves more attention than it sometimes gets.
We've actually got a pretty good spread of sources for this deep dive. Articles, forum discussions, even a blog post, and a YouTube video.
Oh, really? That's great. I'm always curious to see how different people approach and think about friction hitches.
Yeah, so we've got DrtTreeClimbing.com. Always a good starting point, right?
Definitely. They've got some really solid information on their site.
And then there's some good stuff from the ARB Talk forum.
ARB Talk. Always a lively place for discussion.
And to top it off, we've got some visuals from the Notorious YouTube channel.
Okay, nice. It's always helpful to see these hitches in action.
So, the goal here is to really unpack what makes these hitches work, when to use which one, and how to get the most out of them for professional work. Even just skimming these sources, I was amazed by how much variety there is.
Oh, absolutely. It's like each hitch has its own personality and purpose.
Okay, so DrtTreeClimbing.com kicks things off with a pretty straightforward definition. They call a friction hitch a slide and grip knot.
Makes sense, right. It moves along the rope until you put weight on it, then boom, the friction kicks in.
But they also make this point that friction hitches are not rappel devices. They even say they can jam under the full weight of a rappel. That kind of gave me pause.
Yeah, no, that's really important to understand. They're not designed for that kind of force. I mean, think about it. You're relying on this tiny little knot to control your descent.
It does make you think twice about how much trust we put in these things.
Right. That's why it's so crucial to understand the limitations of each hitch. When a rappel is involved, you need to distribute that weight, use techniques like a munter hitch or a foot brake.
So it's about layers of safety, not just depending on the hitch alone.
Exactly. Think of it like a safety net. You don't want to rely on just one thing to catch you if you fall.
DrtTreeClimbing.com actually goes into how to choose the right hitch based on what kind of climbing you're doing.
Oh, yeah. That's super important. Not all hitches are created equal,
Like with double rope technique, they list out a bunch. The Longhorn Agile, the Ddrt Ascender, the Longhorn Zenith, and the Agile Hitch. Seems like you've got more options with the DRT.
You do. Because with DRT, the weight is distributed across those two ropes, so you've got a wider range of hitches that can handle the load effectively.
But when you switch to single rope technique, things change, right?
They do. With SRT, all that force is concentrated on a single line, so your hitch choice becomes even more critical. DrtTreeClimbing.com really narrows it down. They mainly recommend the Longhorn Agile and the Ddrt Ascender hitches for SRT.
Interesting. And then there's this thing about the head knot. DrtTreeClimbing.com recommends it as a top choice for a rappel backup. I always found the head a bit fiddly to tie, to be honest.
I can see that. It can take a bit of getting used to.
So what makes it so good for a backup?
Well, for a backup, you want something compact, strong, and incredibly reliable under load. Yeah. And the head really checks all those boxes.
Okay, yeah. I guess if you're only using it as a backup, you don't need to tie it all the time.
Right. It's that set it and forget it. It's kind of hitch. You know it's going to hold if you need it. Plus, its small size means it's less likely to snag on anything.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And DrtTreeClimbing.com does mention that releasing a stuck friction hitch can be tricky, especially with the head being so strong. They say it's important to have a plan.
Always good to be prepared, right? I mean, we've all had those moments where a hitch just doesn't want to budge.
Speaking of preparation, that makes me wonder, do you have any go-to methods for releasing a stubborn hitch in the field?
Well, sometimes it's as simple as shifting your weight or changing the angle of the rope. But sometimes, yeah, you need a bit more finesse.
We might have to dedicate a whole other deep dive to just that.
Maybe. But for now, let's move on to something that really caught my eye in the DrtTreeClimbing.com article, the Longhorn Loop.
Oh, yeah, the Longhorn Loop. They explain how it's like the base for a whole bunch of hitches, like the Longhorn Agile and the Longhorn Zenith.
It is. It's a really clever concept. It's kind of like, how the Prusik knot is the foundation for so many techniques. The Longhorn Loop is like that, but for a whole new family of hitches.
So JRB has basically taken this one loop and used it to create a bunch of specialized hitches, each designed for a specific purpose.
That's right. It's a testament to their innovation in knot design, I think, always pushing the boundaries.
Okay, so let's talk about some of these hitches in action. The Longhorn Agile seems to be getting a lot of praise. JRB calls it the best overall for SRT, Ddrt, and even for tether lifeline use.
It's a very versatile hitch, for sure, and it's got a lot going for it.
They highlight the non-jamming design, how easy it is to tie, and its self-tending ability.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impressive resume. But I'm curious, what makes those features so important, especially for professional arborists like us?
Well, take the non-jamming feature, for example. That's absolutely crucial for SRT because you've got those higher loads on a single rope. A jammed hitch in that situation could be a real problem.
Right. It's not like you can just easily switch to your other line like you could with Ddrt.
Exactly. And then the ease of tying is a huge advantage when you're up in the tree, and time is of the essence. The quicker and more efficiently you can tie your hitch, the better.
And what about the self-tending aspect? What are the real-world benefits of that?
Well, for tethers or lifelines, self-tending means you can make adjustments without having to constantly fiddle with the hitch. It adds an extra layer of safety because you know the hitch is going to adjust smoothly and reliably on its own.
So it's like having a hitch that's always looking out for you.
Exactly. It's a great feature to have.
So if I'm looking for a versatile, reliable hitch that can handle a range of situations and keep me moving efficiently, it sounds like the Longhorn Agile is a strong contender. But JRB also mentions the JRB Ascender hitch as a good alternative.
They do. It's another really solid option, especially if you need a hitch with a smaller profile. It's incredibly stable.
Okay, so smaller profile, super stable. When would you choose the Ascender over the Agile?
Well, think about situations where you need a hitch that's going to stay put for a while, like in an adjustable bridge. The Ascender is really good for that because it holds its position really well, even under load. It might be a bit trickier to tie than the Longhorn Agile, but that stability makes it ideal for applications where you're going to leave the hitch tied for a longer period.
So each hitch has its own strengths, depending on what you're doing.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to have a good understanding of the different options out there.
Right. And that takes us to the Arb Talk forum. Lots of discussion there about the nut hitch. People seem to love its simplicity and reliability.
The nut is a classic, isn't it? It's been around forever, and it's still a popular choice for a lot of arborists.
They were really praising its grip and the fact that it's self-tending. And again, that small size seems to be a big plus.
Yeah, the nut is a nice compact hitch, which makes it less prone to snagging on branches and gear.
And then, of course, there's the Blake's hitch. Both the Arb Talk forum and Recoil's blog mentioned it. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the Blake's hitch myself. I know it's been around forever, but it's always felt reliable to me.
The Blake's hitch is a true workhorse, no doubt about it. It's been a staple in the arborist's toolkit for generations. Reliable, easy to tie, it just works.
I do sometimes find it a bit bulkier than some of the other hitches, though. Have you found that?
I can see that. It's not the most streamlined hitch out there, but it's got one unique advantage.
What's that?
Well, the Blake's hitch works really well on rope. That's the same diameter as the cord you're using to tie it. That can be a lifesaver in situations where you don't have a smaller diameter cord handy.
That is pretty handy. You know, Recoil's blog actually brought up something that got me thinking. They said that how well a hitch performs can be really different depending on whether you're using Ddrt or SRT.
Yeah. Noticed that too.
They specifically mentioned that it's especially noticeable when you're using a rope wrench. Do you know why that is?
Yeah.
Because in my head, a hitch is a hitch, you know?
Well, not exactly. The thing about the rope wrench is that it doesn't distribute the weight as evenly as you would with a second rope in a Ddrt setup.
Oh, right. Because with Ddrt, you've got 2 points of contact sharing the load.
Exactly. But with a rope wrench, all that force is concentrated on a single point. And that can change how the hitch grips and releases.
Ah, I see. So the same hitch might feel completely different depending on how the weight is distributed.
Precisely. And that's why Recoil really stresses the importance of experimenting. They say you need to understand how your chosen hitch is going to behave with your specific gear and techniques.
Because what works great for one person might not work as well for someone else.
Exactly. And they have a great motto. Practice low and slow, especially when you're trying out a new hitch or a new technique.
Speaking of practice, they also had some great advice on just the practical stuff, like keeping your hitches clean to make them last longer.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to overlook the little things, but they can make a big difference in the long run.
They even suggested using rings or something similar to prevent your gloves from snagging on the hitch.
Yeah, those little snags can be annoying. And they can slow you down.
And get this, they talked about using a small ring to reduce sitback.
Interesting. I haven't tried that one myself.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. And then something they mentioned that I think a lot of people don't even think about carabiner orientation. Apparently, how you position your carabiner can affect how smoothly the hitch runs.
It can. And it can also affect how easily the hitch releases. It's all about the details, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so we've talked about some of the heavy hitters in the hitch world, the Longhorn Agile, the Nut, the Blake's Hitch. But our sources also mentioned a few less common ones that piqued my interest. Have you ever heard of the Distel?
The Distel. Yeah, I've come across it a few times. It's not as widely used, but it's got its fans.
And then there's the VT, or Valdotain Tresse. It's got a cool name.
It does. I've heard good things about it, but haven't had a chance to really experiment with it myself.
And then there's the Michoacan, another one that's kind of under the radar.
It seems like there's a whole world of specialized hitches out there.
Right. And then Notorious on YouTube throws a few more into the mix.
Oh, yeah. What did he have?
The Ficus Hitch, the Pananga, and the Catalyst Hitch. Some of these are pretty unique. I have to say, I was impressed with the visuals.
Oh, I bet. Notorious always does a great job of showcasing the beauty of these knots.
It's like they each have their own personality, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes exploring the world of friction hitches so fascinating. It's a blend of practicality, ingenuity, and even a bit of artistry.
It really is. So we've covered a lot of ground here, talked about some of the fundamentals of friction hitches, looked at a bunch of different options, and even touched on some of the things that can affect how well they perform. It's amazing how much depth there is to something as seemingly simple as a knot. Too, I want to get your take on something.
I'm all ears. What's on your mind?
Well, with all this variety, it's clear there's no one best hitch. It really depends on the context, your experience, and even your personal preferences. But what do you think are the most important things for a professional arborist to consider when choosing a hitch? What are the things that make a hitch stand out in your toolkit?
That's a great question. It really makes you think about what matters most. For me, it boils down to a few key things: reliability, efficiency, and safety. A hitch that performs consistently allows for quick adjustments and adds an extra layer of security. Those were the winners in my book. But it's also got to feel good in your hands, you know? A hitch that you can tie and adjust smoothly, almost instinctively.
Yeah, I get that. It's like developing a relationship with your gear, knowing how it's going to behave in different situations.
Exactly. And that comes with practice and experience. The more you work with different hitches, the more you understand their nuances and how they perform under various conditions.
Speaking of conditions, we touched on how those can really affect a hitch's performance. Recoil's blog had that great reminder to practice low and slow, especially when you're trying out a new hitch or technique. I'm curious, have you had any experiences where a hitch behaved differently than you expected out in the field?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one time I was using a hitch that I thought I knew really well, but the rope was damp and the angle was a bit different, and it created a lot more friction than I was anticipating.
Oh, wow. So it really threw you off.
It did for a few minutes, yeah. It took me a bit longer to get the hitch moving smoothly, and it definitely made me realize the importance of being adaptable and always having a backup plan.
It's a good reminder that even with all the knowledge and experience in the world, there are always going to be surprises when you're working in the trees.
That's part of what keeps it interesting, right? It's about constantly learning and refining your skills.
So given that unpredictability, what are your thoughts on having a go-to hitch versus experimenting with different options? Is there value in sticking with what you know, or is it important to keep exploring?
I think it's a balance, you know. Having a go-to hitch that you're confident and proficient with is essential. It's your reliable workhorse, the one you can rely on in most situations.
Right, like your old reliable friend.
Exactly. But there's also immense value in experimenting with other hitches, understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and expanding your toolkit.
Because you never know when a different hitch might be the perfect solution for a unique challenge.
Exactly. It's like having a whole set of tools at your disposal. You wouldn't want to just use a hammer for every job, would you?
No way. You got to have the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, jrbtreeclimbing.com had their whole section on choosing the right hitch for the task at hand. They recommended the Longhorn Agile, JRB Ascender, Longhorn Zenith, and Agile hitches for doubled rope technique. Then for single rope technique, they narrowed it down to just the Longhorn Agile and the JRB Ascender. What are your thoughts on their recommendations?
I think they're spot on. For DDRT, where you've got the load distributed across 2 ropes, you have more flexibility in hitch choice.
Right, like we talked about earlier.
But with SRT, where all that weight is on a single line, you really need to choose a hitch that's specifically designed to handle that stress. Both the Longhorn Agile and the JLB Ascender are excellent choices for SRT.
And what about those less common hitches we discussed earlier, like the Distel, the VT, and the Mishwaken? What advice would you give to someone who's interested in exploring those options?
I'd say go for it. Research, practice, and experiment in a safe environment. These less mainstream hitches often have unique characteristics that might make them ideal for specific applications or personal preferences.
So it's all about finding what works best for you and your style of climbing.
Exactly. The key is to approach it with an open mind and a commitment to learning.
That's a great takeaway. Stay curious and keep learning. And remember, it's not just about memorizing knot configurations. It's about understanding how these hitches interact with your climbing system, your gear, and your own movement.
Absolutely.
We briefly mentioned the Distel, the VT, Valdotain Tresse,
Right.
and the Mishwaken. What can you tell us about these more specialized options?
These hitches often appeal to arborists who are looking for something unique, something tailored to their specific needs or preferences. The Distel, for example, is known for its compact size and its ability to be tied directly around a carabiner, which can be advantageous in certain scenarios. The VT, or Valdotain Tresse, is a beautifully elegant hitch that offers a very smooth and controlled descent. And the Mishwaken is a versatile hitch that can be used for both ascending and descending, and it's known for its exceptional grip on the rope.
And then we have those truly unique hitches, showcased by Notorious on YouTube. The Ficus hitch, the Penanga, and the Catalyst hitch. They were almost works of art, weren't they? What struck you about those?
I love how Notorious highlights not just the functional aspects of these hitches, but also their aesthetic appeal. It's a reminder that even in a field as practical as arboriculture, there's room for creativity and artistry. The Ficus hitch, with its intricate weaving pattern, is a prime example. It's not only functional, but it's also visually stunning. The Penanga, with its unique knot structure, offers a very different look and feel, and it's known for its smooth and controlled descent. And the Catalyst hitch, with its distinctive design, is both visually appealing and highly functional, offering excellent grip and control.
It's like each of these hitches has its own personality, its own story to tell.
Absolutely, and that's what makes exploring the world of friction hitches so captivating. It's a blend of practicality, ingenuity, and even a touch of artistry.
It's inspiring to see the innovation and creativity within the arborist community. We've come a long way from those early hitches, haven't we?
We have, and it's exciting to think about what the future holds. With new materials and techniques constantly emerging, the possibilities for hitch design and functionality are endless.
I can't wait to see what new knots and techniques emerge in the years to come. But for now, let's wrap up this deep dive by bringing it back to you, the listener. We've explored a whole world of friction hitches from the classics to the cutting edge. But now I want to hear from you out there in the listener land.
Yeah, what are your top priorities when you're choosing a hitch for your work up in the trees?
Is it that smooth tending? Is it about finding a hitch that's compact enough to fit in those tight spots? Or maybe it's all about how quickly and easily you can tie it when you're up there on the job.
Or maybe it's something else entirely that feeling of knowing you've got a hitch that's going to hold no matter what.
Exactly. We've covered a lot of different hitches in this deep dive, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. But ultimately, the best hitch for you is the one that meets your specific needs and preferences.
So tell us what makes a hitch stand out for you. What are your must-haves?
We're all ears. Share your thoughts, your experiences, your go-to hitches, and why they're your favorites. Let's keep this conversation going. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of friction hitches. Hopefully we've sparked some new ideas and given you some things to think about the next time you're gearing up for a climb.
Absolutely. And remember, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those knots tight.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Talking Trees. We've unraveled the mechanics behind friction knots, exploring their slippage and grip principle, their role in safe tree climbing practices, and how they're best used alongside other safety measures. From comparing various types to discussing their applications in DSRT and SRT, we hope you've gained valuable insights into these essential tools. Until next time, keep climbing safely and nurturing our green spaces.